miracles under the sun. Greece is said to have 1,000 islands. In fact, there are at least 3 times as many. Welcome to a journey of discovery through the islands of Greece. Begin our journey from the pearl of the Mediterranean, the volcanic island of Santorini. Then we head north to Naxos, onwards via Delos to Tinos, and then finally to Amorgos. And in Tinos, we trace the feeling in the sculptor's fingertips. We accompany the Cyclades, the Mediterranean's most famous ferry. And end today's round trip in Amorgos with Abbot Spiridon. "30 kilometers before Naxos, our last stop, lies Tinos. The island's celebrity is a pelican. One day, Marcos, a fisherman, freed him from his nets. Now Marcos only feeds the seagulls. The pelican gets his own fish from the fish shop every morning. Tinos is, however, most famous for a Marian apparition from almost 200 years previous, to which the largest sacred building in the Greek Orthodox Church pays tribute. It is a Mecca for hundreds of pilgrims daily, who make the long journey from the port to the church on their hands and knees. It took many specialists to erect the large church with its many marble adornments. Tinos was a place of pilgrimage even in ancient times, with temples and oracles. Since then, there's been a tradition of marble carving. It is no wonder that Greece's most famous school of sculpture is also located here. We meet Ariadna in the mountain village of Amorgos. A trainee stone sculptor in her second year, she comes from Crete and originally came here just on a visit.
I came here, saw what they were doing, and was immediately impressed. I'd never heard of this school before. It's hardly advertised. So I decided to give it a try, and that's how I ended up here.
Training in the island's small, renowned elite academy takes 3 years. The students must learn to scan the originals and transfer the values onto their workpieces, point by point. Only then are they allowed to use the cutter. Machines are taboo at the academy. The students first have to learn to become familiar with the marble.
You get a hefty piece of marble and tools, and you try to work it. You have to make a cube, a pyramid, or a rectangle. The main thing is to learn how to use the tools properly and to sculpt right angles. Each side must be straight, because if one side is uneven, the whole thing is ruined. Marble has different sides, the morello, the face, and the head. You can't just hack away at it. You have to study the pattern of the grain. The most important thing with marble is to determine the run of the grain, so you know how to work with it. It can take a whole year for you to cut a rectangle out of the marble. It's not at all easy. You might even begin your second year of studies and you still haven't figured it out yet.
Many students are ready to throw in the towel at this point. They first have to realize in the first instance that it's not about fine art, but first of all, about a solid, tangible craft.
It gets easier when you pluck up your courage and overcome your fear of carving the stone and just get to it. And you have to be patient and be prepared to start all over again from the beginning. If that's even possible, sometimes it's no longer an option.
Around the village, on the whole island, there are terraces artistically secured with natural stone walls, so-called pelagos, the legacy of previous generations where fruit and vegetables were once reaped on a large scale. Thanks to these terraces, the topsoil has not been washed away through erosion, and the island remains quite green. Between these terraces is another peculiar feature of the island, the pigeon lofts. The Venetians kept pigeons in such decorative constructions. They used the pigeon waste as fertilizer on the terraced fields, and the young pigeons landed in the cooking pot. Onwards in a southeasterly direction to Amorgos. Dozens of ferries plow through the Aegean, the lifeline of the Mediterranean, the motorway through the islands. more than 30 years, the Skopelitis has connected the small Cyclades to the rest of the world. Every day we transport people, food, everything that these little islands need. The Express Skopelitis is a special ferry in the Cyclades. Everyone knows her, her departure and arrival times, her freight capacity and cargo space. And knows Captain Fostieres and his crew. Everyone is glad that they can rely on them.
Καταρχάς, θα πρέπει να εμπνεύσεις στον κόσμο μία εμπιστοσύνη. Ό,τι θα περάσει, να το βάλω στη σημερινή.
It's important the islanders know that the ship will come by regularly and punctually.
5 λεπτά από τον Άγιο Γιάννη θα είναι στο
Like the
Σύνταγμα.
train, not hindered by traffic lights, regardless of storms,
Θα έχει φανάρια,
without delays.
δεν θα έχει τίποτα. Εγώ λοιπόν μετά από το 90 μέχρι
I've been traveling this route since 1990. And we've had many situations where we have had to help. We're prepared for any eventuality, even childbirth. But since our journeys are very short, we never had the pleasure of a birth on board.
Ακόμα δεν έχει τύχει, δυστυχώς, να πάρουμε και αυτή τη χαρά.
For a long time, the Skopelitis was the people's only connection to the outside world. Other than that, many of the islands were isolated and left to fend for themselves. The islanders have entrusted everything to the crew, their animals, their money, their children. Before cash machines were installed on the islands, they gave the seamen their bank cards and PIN numbers so that they could withdraw money for them on Naxos. Even today, the crew collects the pensions from the banks on the main island for many of the older inhabitants and brings savings to the counter or important documents to the authorities. They even transport blood samples from seriously ill patients to specialists on the neighboring island, safely stored in the ship's bar refrigerator. Once the goats, scrap metal, flat screens, cigarettes, and the last passengers are on board, the loadmaster sorts letters and always knows exactly who gets what letters from whom, and often the reason why. Most young travelers visit Captain Yanis on the bridge.
Όσοι μπαίνουν μέσα, η ώρα φτάνουμε κάθε μέρα. Οτιδήποτε συμβεί μες στο βαπόρι, μα οτιδήποτε συμβεί, πρέπει να γραφτεί. Γιατί αυτό ελέγχεται. Βλέπεις εδώ που είναι με τα κόκκινα, είναι γιατί ήταν ο καιρός φουρτούνα ή μας απαγορεύουν τον Απόπουλο ή μας τον επιτρέπουν.
I'd love to be captain on this ship, because life here in the Cyclades is still different, and this ship has written history. The first time I traveled on this ship was when I injured my hand and had to travel to Naxos. Man, it was really rocky and I got sick.
Όταν ταξιδεύεις τόσα χρόνια,
You regularly encounter difficulties when you travel on the sea for so many years.
τα οποία σε δυσκολεύουν.
You have to be very careful in order to overcome them.
Για να τα ξεπεράσεις. Να ξέρεις πότε,
You have to know how to preserve your strength when you don't have enough,
πότε πρέπει να την προσέξεις.
when you have to be careful, or whether you can cross.
Επειδή την αγαπώ υπερβολικά.
Because I love and respect the ocean, I was able to survive several storms. Plenty of storms. On the route to the edge of the European continental plate, there are treacherous sea currents.
Η θάλασσα είναι μια μεγάλη ερωμένη.
The sea is a wonderful lover, like a beautiful woman, unpredictable. It has great power, which destroys you if you don't respect it. And whoever fears it can never be a seaman.
Τον έφαγε. Και όποιος τη φοβήθηκε δεν έγινε ποτέ ναυτικός.
The sea calms down once again. We set sail for Amorgos, a spectacular island literally at the edge of Europe. Amorgos has been inhabited since the 3rd millennium BC. Its dwellers at the time decided not to live at the beach, but higher up on the plateau. Not just out of fear of the pirates, but also because of the floods. The many sea quakes in the region caused repeated tsunamis on the island's coasts. One of Europe's most famous monasteries, Cyclades, is fixed to the cliff face like a swallow's nest.
Γεννήθηκα στην Λαγάδα της Αιγιάλης.
I was born in Legada, in Amorgos in 1953. And was actually a naughty child with a restless spirit, perhaps a revolutionary.
Θέλησε επαναστάτης, ίσως. Έλεγα μικρό παιδί του δημοτικού σχολείου θα γίνω.
When I was in primary school, I said I would become either a priest or a gypsy. I mean a blacksmith. Sometimes the same word has different meanings. In my village, the word gypsy means blacksmith.
Και έχει άλλη ερμηνεία. Γύφτο στο χωριό μου λέγανε το σιδερά, το σιδηρουρό.
The monastery was founded in the 9th century. In its heyday, almost 100 monks lived here and tended to its lush estates. Today, only Abbot Spiridon lives here with 2 confreres. He has lived here for more than 40 years, exactly where he was drawn to when he was a child.
Το μοναστήρι Χρυσοβιώτισσας, το μοναστήρι το δικό μας.
As children, we were in and out of here often. We grew up here with the legends, the sayings, the traditions, with the miracle of the Holy Mary, and somehow we loved and looked after this monastery. It's our monastery. Yes, it belongs to the whole world, but still it belongs to us, the people from Amorgos. It's our pride, our jewel. It's something with which the Amorgos people identify. And, with the grace of God, I came here in 1971, 41 years ago. In the Cyclades monastery chapel high above the sea, every day the monks hold 3 masses, at least. The first begins at 4:30 in the morning. Gilded icons hang from the walls. Among them, the picture which the monastery can thank for its founding. A picture of the Virgin Mary, which monks wanted to save from iconoclasm. 1,200 years ago, these monks came here to Amorgos to bring the icon to safety. The iconic figure of the Virgin Mary originally comes from a cloister in Palestine. She had to cross many oceans to get here. The monks were on the run and had taken their icon, their holy treasure, with them. They traveled into the unknown. As they sailed by, they saw that the landscape was very similar to the one that they had left, with its steep, grandiose cliffs. So they remained on Amorgos and found their refuge. The first monks discovered a mason's nail high up in the cliff and believed it was a sign from God. And at this spot, they began to build their monastery. The cliff breaks off time and again, and large chunks fall onto the ruins in which the monks live. Recently, a chunk fell off that was the size of a small car. However, a rock has never fallen on a person in all of the 1,200 years of the cloister's existence. That's a miracle. The abbot's cell is only one of over 60 rooms. When Abbot Spiridon first entered the monastery, over 40 monks lived here. Over the course of time, they became fewer and fewer. Life here consists of masses, prayer meetings, chicken feeding, kitchen work, rare visits. You would like a plate of starters? You'd like a change, variety, a special meal, or whatever else? Bean soup. Every day, every day, every day. Something new? That's not possible, you understand? That's how the days are here. Lovely, they're lovely, regardless of how they take shape. We live them, we enjoy them, we embody them. Everything is a gift. Life is a gift from God. The rambling estates were taken from the monks when the Greek state dispossessed the monastery in 1952. The monks still have goats and chickens and their vegetable gardens. They still have to provide for themselves. People today rely only on themselves, on their egos. As a result, they've botched it all up. Life is a battle, a struggle. It's a stormy sea. The monastery is a port, and one feels safe in a port. We're suffering a crisis in the monastery, and I see it as a sign of the times. Man doesn't know what he wants. Modern man has lost his orientation, although he is still devout. We have to be positive for a better future. God will give us everything. I personally believe this. I am by nature an optimist. This is the end of our journey through the Cyclades. But we will discover more fascinating aspects of the Greek islands. At the the famous monastery of Patmos, we visit a grotto in which St. John wrote the Apocalypse. Beyond the walls of the monastery, Anastasia is expecting us on her research vessel. Ankalimnos Apostolos introduces us to the art of free diving, which is used for sponge fishing.